The day influence changed hands quietly. There are shifts of power the world never notices. No announcement marks them. No ceremony records them. Yet when they happen, nothing ever works the same again. This story begins on a day when influence changed hands without resistance, without conflict, and almost without awareness. This moment matters today because power is rarely lost by force anymore. It is transferred through relevance, through who people listen to when no one is watching. And on this day, one sheik realized that authority no longer belongs solely to position, but a trust quietly earned over time. The realization came during a routine briefing. Reports were thorough, decisions aligned. Everything appeared orderly. But as he listened, he noticed something subtle. Conversations no longer waited for approval. Initiatives had already moved forward before reaching the top. Alignment existed without instruction. At first, it looked like efficiency. Then he understood what it really was. Influence had shifted. People were no longer acting because of hierarchy. They were acting because of shared judgment. The system no longer depended on the throne to validate direction. It had internalized purpose. Authority still existed, but it was no longer the primary driver of motion. This was not rebellion. It was evolution. Years of restraint, clarity, and consistency had changed behavior at every level. Leaders trusted one another's intent. Decisions flowed horizontally instead of vertically. The center still mattered, but it no longer needed to pull everything toward itself. The reveal unsettled him more than any challenge ever had. If influence could move without him, what was his role now? The instinct to reclaim control surfaced briefly. A directive could re-centralize authority instantly. A visible intervention could remind everyone where power lived. But he resisted, sensing the danger. Interrupting this shift would not restore strength. It would expose insecurity. Instead, he observed, and what he saw was undeniable. The system was healthier, without constant dependence on command. Influence had changed hands, not away from leadership, but into it, distributed across those who had earned trust through action. That was the moment he understood something rare. Power had not diminished, it had matured. And the question ahead was no longer how to lead, but how to lead when influence no longer needed to be claimed. Because what happens next determines whether quiet power becomes permanent, or whether fear forces it back into old hands. The shift did not announce itself, but its effects multiplied quickly. Meetings shortened, decisions accelerated. Fewer issues climbed upward for validation. At first glance, it looked like efficiency reaching its peak. But beneath that surface, a deeper tension was forming. Some advisors grew uneasy. Influence without visible control felt unstable. Authority, once clearly defined by hierarchy, now seemed diffuse. Questions surfaced quietly. Who was ultimately responsible? What happens when judgments diverge? Could trust alone sustain alignment under pressure? The conflict emerged when two major initiatives advanced simultaneously with conflicting priorities. In the past, such friction would have been resolved immediately at the top. This time, the system hesitated, not from confusion, but from restraint. Leaders attempted alignment among themselves before escalating upward. It worked, but the delay exposed anxiety. Some interpreted the pause as weakness. Others feared that distributed influence would eventually erode coherence. The temptation to re-centralize authority returned, not because failure had occurred, but because control felt safer than trust. He recognized the danger. Systems often retreat not after collapse, but after success that feels unfamiliar. The urge to reclaim visible power can surface precisely when quiet power proves effective. And yielding to that urge would undo years of cultural alignment in a single moment. So he made a deliberate choice. He did nothing. No directive, no correction, no reminder of hierarchy. Instead, he clarified one thing privately and repeatedly. Alignment mattered more than speed. Responsibility mattered more than approval. If disagreement arose, it must be resolved through shared judgment before seeking authority. The message spread. Leaders adjusted behavior accordingly. Conversations deepened. Trade-offs were surfaced earlier. Influence continued flowing, but with greater discipline. What looked like looseness began hardening into coherence. The conflict, however, had not disappeared. It had moved inward, because the final question was no longer whether influence could be shared, but whether leadership could resist reclaiming it when pressure mounted. That test was coming, and it would reveal whether this quiet transfer of influence was a phase, or the foundation of a new kind of power. The pressure arrived gradually, then all at once. A complex challenge emerged that demanded rapid coordination across multiple sectors. Timelines tightened. External scrutiny increased. This was the kind of moment that traditionally pulled influence back to the center, where speed and authority could override debate. Eyes turned upward again, not in panic, but in expectation. This was the true conflict. Quiet influence had proven effective in calm conditions. Now it faced stress. If leadership intervened decisively, it would confirm doubts that trust was temporary. If it stayed distant, it risked fragmentation at the worst possible moment. He chose a third path. He stepped in, not to command outcomes, but to reinforce connection. He convened leaders across sectors, not to dictate, but to synchronize understanding. He restated shared purpose, clarified non-negotiable boundaries, and then withdrew again. The influence remained distributed. The alignment was strengthened. The effect was immediate and intense. Decisions accelerated without collapsing into chaos. Disagreements surfaced early, not late. Accountability became visible rather than implied. Leaders acted knowing they were trusted, but also watched by peers, not just authority. Influence moved laterally, correcting itself in real time. The crisis exposed something essential. Influence had not changed hands away from leadership. Leadership had changed its grip. Those who once feared loss of control began recognizing a different kind of strength. The system no longer waited for validation. It validated itself through coherence. Authority had become an anchor, not a lever. The turning point came when the challenge stabilized without a single directive issued. Observers searching for decisive order found none. The solution emerged from coordination, not command. Influence, once invisible, became undeniable. In that moment, the old model quietly expired. Control had been replaced by trust. Yet the cost was real. Leadership had surrendered the illusion of omnipotence. Credit was diffuse. Blame could not be deflected upward. Influence required constant integrity rather than episodic display. And as the system settled into its new equilibrium, one final question remained. Could this form of power survive not just pressure, but failure? Because when influence is shared, mistakes are shared too. And how leadership responds when trust is tested by error would determine whether this quiet shift endured or collapsed back into hierarchy. That test was inevitable, and it was already on its way. The failure arrived without warning and without a single person to blame. A coordinated effort missed its mark, not disastrously, but visibly enough to test confidence. In the old system, authority would step forward immediately, absorbing blame, issuing correction, reasserting control. This time it did not. The response was measured and collective. Leaders involved acknowledged the misalignment openly. Assumptions were examined. Adjustments proposed from within the system, not imposed from above. Responsibility did not scatter. It concentrated around learning. This was the climax, not the mistake itself, but the refusal to re-centralize power in response to it. Leadership held its distance, resisting the instinct to reclaim influence for the sake of reassurance. Trust, once extended, was not withdrawn when it became inconvenient. The result surprised even its strongest skeptics. Correction happened faster than command ever allowed. Because ownership was shared, accountability was immediate. Because influence was distributed, insight traveled quickly. The system adapted, not defensively, but intelligently. The resolution followed with quiet permanence. The moment passed. Confidence returned, not because error was denied, but because it was addressed without fear. Influence remained where it had shifted, no longer provisional, no longer fragile. Standing apart afterward, he understood what had truly changed. Influence had not been taken from him. It had been multiplied. By letting go of control at the right moment, he had built something stronger than authority. alignment that did not depend on hierarchy to survive. Power no longer needed to announce itself, because it was embedded everywhere responsibility lived. That was the day influence changed hands quietly. And the reason it never needed to change back. Subscribe to join the journey. The day